Imagine this for a second. You're an all-star defender, right? Paid millions to stop the best players in the world. And your guy, your assignment, he hasn't even crossed the half-court line yet.
Not even close.
And he pulls up from 40 feet out, right on the logo, a place that used to be just for, desperation, heaves at the buzzer.
Total Hail Mary territory.
And the ball is already splashing through the net before your brain can even finish telling your hands to get up and contest. That's not a hypothetical. That's the reality of guarding Steph Curry.
It's a phenomenon that it breaks the fundamental rules of basketball strategy. We're talking about one guy who didn't just master a skill. He forced the entire NBA to basically tear up its defensive playbook and start from scratch.
And this isn't just hype from us or from fans. This is the raw, unfiltered truth, and it's coming straight from the legends who had to deal with it. We're talking Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, even Shaq.
All of them admitting on the record why they feared his game, and not in some, abstract way. They give very concrete strategic reasons.
Which brings us to the big question for today's deep dive. Has there ever, in any era of basketball, been a player who made future Hall of Famers look so utterly helpless from 30, even 40 feet away from the basket?
That's what we're digging into. A listener sent us this incredible collection of sources, interviews, quotes, analysis from these legends, all explaining why they consider Stephen Curry's shooting to be truly, fundamentally unstoppable.
So our mission today is to pull out those core insights. We want to understand how one single player didn't just get really good at shooting, but actually revolutionized the entire strategic landscape of the game.
And before we get into the nitty-gritty, just think about this for a second. Picture your favorite old-school defensive scheme. Maybe it's the hard-nosed trap or a traditional drop coverage with a big man in the paint.
The Jordan rules, maybe?
Right, anything. Now, honestly, ask yourself, can any of those possibly stop a legitimate shot from the parking lot? We're about to hear exactly why the legends themselves say the answer is a hard no.
All right, let's start with the context, because you really can't grasp the scale of this revolution without it. The sources make a very clear distinction between two eras, the pre-Curry era and, well, everything that came after.
It's a clean break. Before Steph, if you're a point guard pulled up from the half-court logo in the middle of the second quarter, your coach is calling a timeout and probably benching you.
Oh, absolutely. It was seen as a bad shot. Statistically irrational, a sign that your offense had failed.
Exactly. The math of basketball was simple for 60 years? A two-pointer inside the arc was your bread and butter. If you took a three, you needed to hit it at about a 33% clip just to be as efficient as a 50% two-point shooter.
And the farther you got from the three-point line, the crazier that math got. The risk-reward was just not there.
It made a 35-foot shot a total waste of a possession unless the shot clock was at 0.
But what Curry did, and this is the key, wasn't just get a little bit better at those shots. He completely changed the baseline expectation. He made that shot normal.
He normalized the impossible, and that's where the old defensive structures just completely crumbled. As a defense, you used to live with a guy taking a deep three. You'd say, okay, we'll let him take that low percentage shot all day.
Right. Good defense, you'd call it.
But when Curry takes a 35-footer, the defense knows the odds are actually in his favor, not theirs. That cognitive shift, the realization that the deepest shot on the court is also one of the most dangerous, that's the start of the whole revolution.
Which is the perfect entry point for what Kobe Bryant had to say. His analogy is maybe the most powerful one out there because it gets right to the psychological core of the problem. He said, guarding Steph is like trying to guard a ghost.
Guarding a ghost, just let that sink in. It's about the sheer futility of the assignment. It implies the threat isn't even, tangible. Kobe's point was that by the time your brain processes that Curry is actually shooting, the event is already over. The ball is already gone.
It's that lethal combination, right? The insane range, which we talked about, but then you pair it with a release that's just blindingly fast.
Let's break down why that ghost analogy is so mechanically accurate. Most shooters, even the all-time greats, they have a tell. They have a rhythm. There's a moment where they gather their feet, they load up, they dip the ball.
You can see the shot coming.
Yeah.
As a defender, you're trained to read those cues and time your contest.
Right. But Curry, he basically eliminates that whole setup phase. When Kobe says the ball is already gone, he means that the window for a defender to react has been compressed to virtually 0.
So you're always a step behind. You're guarding the space where he was, not where he is. You're chasing a ghost.
Precisely. You're reacting to an event that has already been decided. It's a perfect description of mechanical and spatial futility.
And that futility leads directly to what Kobe called the rule change implication. He was very direct about this. He said, Steph Curry's shooting literally changed the entire league.
And it's not a rule in the official NBA rulebook. It's an unwritten, player-driven rule that every single coach and defender in the league now understands is non-negotiable. You have to guard him the second he crosses half court. Period. You have to pick him up 10, 15 feet beyond the actual three-point line. That action, forcing the point of defensive pressure so far out from the basket, that's the core of the revolution.
Okay, let's really dive into the geometry of that, because that's where it gets crazy. The NBA three-point line is about 24 feet from the hoop.
23 feet, 9 inches, yeah.
So if a defender is forced to attach themselves to Curry at, say, 35 or 40 feet, think about the amount of empty space that creates behind them. We're talking about a massive gaping hole in the defense.
It completely warps the court. The floor expands for the offense and shrinks for the defense. Your rotations become longer, your help defense is farther away, everything is harder.
If that one defender guarding Curry is that far out, they can't help on a drive, they can't clog a passing lane, and maybe most importantly, you're pulling the other team's big man, their rim protector, way out of the paint where they're most effective.
That's the cascading effect. It's a domino chain of defensive breakdowns. And it all starts because one guy can reliably make a shot from a place that used to be a dead zone. Defending Curry isn't just about stopping him from shooting.
It's about trying to survive the collateral damage he creates for everybody else on his team.
Which is the perfect transition into the mechanics of it all. How is this even possible? This is where Kevin Durant's testimony is so critical.
Right, because if anyone should be able to bother that shot, it's KD. He's 7 feet tall with, what, a 7'5" wingspan? He's a defensive nightmare.
And a former teammate who saw it up close every single day, yet his quote cuts right through all of that. He said, you can't leave him open for a split second. His release is so fast, it's unfair.
That word, unfair. Coming from one of the most physically gifted scorers and defenders ever, that says everything.
It really does. Because theoretically, Durant's length should be the ultimate neutralizer. A longer shot usually requires more time to gather power, which should give a long defender like KD time to close out and contest.
But it doesn't matter.
It doesn't, because Curry's mechanics bypass that entire equation. It's why KD's length is, in a way, rendered useless.
So let's get into those biomechanics. What makes it so fast? Most traditional shooters have what's called a two-motion shot, right?
Correct. You bring the ball up to a set point near your forehead. There's a slight pause. And then you release it as you jump. It generates a lot of power and arc.
But that's not what Curry does.
No. He has a true one-motion shot. It's almost like a slingshot. The upward movement of his body and the release of the ball are one single, seamless, fluid motion. There's no pause. His set point is also much lower, which shortens the distance the ball has to travel before it's released.
And that's how he gets those release times under 0.4 seconds.
Exactly. And those fractions of a second are everything. A defender like Durant is trained to time his jump to contest a normal two-motion shot. By the time he reacts and launches, Curry's shot is already on its way. His physical gifts are nullified by mechanical perfection.
And because that shot is so devastatingly quick and accurate, defenses had to invent entirely new, high-risk ways to try and deal with it.
Oh, absolutely. The old ways were suicide. You couldn't go under a screen. You couldn't have your center drop back into the paint to protect the rim.
So what do? The sources say teams started switching everything and icing screens. Let's define those for anyone who isn't a total basketball nerd.
Switching everything is exactly what it sounds like. Every time there's a screen, the defenders switch who they're guarding. This means your 7-foot center could suddenly find himself 35 feet from the basket trying to guard the greatest shooter in history.
Which is a complete mismatch. A nightmare scenario for the defense, even if it momentarily stops the three.
A huge strategic cost. And icing a screen is where you aggressively force the ball handler, in this case Curry, away from the screen and towards the sideline. The idea is to use the sideline as an extra defender to trap him.
But again, that's a huge risk. It requires perfect execution and can lead to breakdowns elsewhere if it fails.
They're both extreme measures, and they were adopted league-wide purely in response to one player's mechanics. It's a constant lose-lose choice for the defense, and it all stems from that unfair release speed.
So, to bring this all back to ground level, away from the sort of magic of it, we have to look at the insider view from Draymond Green.
His teammate, his point guard on the floor, yeah.
And Draymond says something incredible. He says, "We practice against it every day, and it still feels unfair."
Think about that. The guy who knows his moves better than anyone, who sees it in practice, who runs the defense against him, even he is still in awe of it. If he feels that way, what chance does an opponent have?
And Draymond is the one who connects the dots for us, and he reveals the source of this unfairness. It's not magic. He says it's an insane work ethic.
Be it specific. Thousands of shots after practice, perfect form, and maybe the most important part, the mindset that logos are layups.
Let's unpack that. The thousands of shots part is obvious, but perfect form is key. He's talking about muscle memory that's so ingrained, the shooting motion is identical whether he's at the free throw line or at half court.
That consistency is mechanically astonishing. To generate that much power from that far out while maintaining the exact same form and release point, that takes thousands and thousands of hours of obsessive, perfect practice.
And then there's the mindset. Logos are layups. What does that mean psychologically?
It means he's completely eliminated the mental hesitation that every other player on Earth feels when they take a shot from that distance. For him, there's no internal debate about, is this a good shot? The risk factor has been trained out of him. He trusts the work. He trusts the muscle memory.
So the unfairness that KD talks about is really a combination of brilliant mechanics and an absolutely relentless, almost fanatical dedication to his craft.
That's it. You can't defend that kind of preparation. You can only react to it. And as the legends tell us, they're always reacting a split second too late.
Which leads us perfectly into the strategic nightmare he creates. We've established the mechanics. Now let's look at the ripple effect on a whole team's defense. And for that, there's no better source than LeBron James.
Nobody faced him on that stage more often. 4 straight finals. LeBron had to game plan for this year after year.
And the metaphor he used is maybe the most famous one of all. He said, Steph warps gravity. The whole defense tilts toward him.
It's such a perfect description. It's not just poetic language. It's a legitimate strategic concept. Let's really break down what warping gravity means on a basketball court.
Please do, because it's the key to understanding the entire Warriors dynasty.
Okay, so think about it in physics terms. A massive object, like a star, has a strong gravitational pull that bends the space around it and pulls other objects in. In basketball, Steph Curry is that star. His scoring threat is so huge, so catastrophic, that all 5 defensive players are forced to orient themselves in relation to him.
They're pulled out of their normal defensive positions.
Exactly. They get pulled towards him, away from their actual assignments. Imagine Curry is running off a screen at the top of the key. The defense knows they can't give him an inch. So maybe 2 or even 3 defenders will shift their bodies just a few feet in his direction to show help.
And that slight shift, that tilt.
That's the gravity. And in that moment, when the defense is tilted towards him, huge open spaces are created everywhere else. A backdoor cut is suddenly wide open. A shooter in the opposite corner has an extra second to get his shot off.
So his gravity creates easy opportunities for his teammates.
Constantly. This is why guys like Klay Thompson got so many open looks. It's why Draymond Green could thrive as a playmaker in 4-on-3 situations. Curry creates a massive number of points that he doesn't even score himself just by being on the floor.
And LeBron, having been on the other side of that, also talked about the sheer exhaustion factor of dealing with it.
Yes. He described defending Curry as physically and mentally exhausting. And it's not just about chasing him around.
What's the mental part?
It's that you can never, ever relax, not for 1 second of one possession. Even when he doesn't have the ball, Curry is in constant motion. He's running these marathon routes, setting screens, creating chaos. The defender guarding him has to be on high alert for the entire shot clock every single time down the floor.
For 48 minutes.
For 48 minutes. Any tiny lapse in concentration, any moment of fatigue, and it's 3 points.
And LeBron ties this directly to the highest possible stakes. He said, in the context of the finals, 1 tiny slip, game over. And that ignoring him, even for a quarter, costs championships.
It's the strategic reality of playing against him. With most superstars, if you hold them in check for 3 quarters, you're probably in a good position to win. But Curry's scoring is so explosive, and it comes in 3-point bursts, that he can erase a 15-point lead in 5 minutes. You can't just contain him. You have to survive him.
Now we have to transition to what might be the most profound statement of all, because of who it comes from. We're talking about Shaquille O'Neal.
The single most physically dominant force in the history of the game. The the ultimate paint protector.
And his admission about Curry is, I think, a defining moment in understanding this whole shift in basketball. He said, I could have blocked MJ, blocked Kobe, but Steph, man, that little dude shoots from the parking lot.
We have to just pause on that for a second. Shaq built his entire legacy on being the immovable object in the paint. He could physically dominate the greatest perimeter players ever, Jordan and Kobe, when they dared to come into his house.
His entire defensive value was based on controlling the area around the rim.
And in that one quote, he is freely admitting that his entire defensive philosophy, his entire physical being, is completely and utterly useless against Steph Curry.
It's a crazy concession to make.
It's a profound one. Shaq's defensive range ended at the free throw line, maybe. If the primary threat is operating from 35 feet, the most dominant defender in NBA history becomes a spectator. His size, his power, the very things that made him a legend are rendered totally meaningless.
His point was crystal clear. Rim protection doesn't matter when the shot comes from way downtown.
Curry essentially made the most valuable defensive asset in basketball history, the dominant, paint-bound center, a strategic liability.
And that's why we saw the center position change so drastically over the last decade.
100%. For 50 years, NBA defense was built from the inside out. Protect the paint first, then worry about the perimeter. Curry single-handedly flipped that script. Now, defense has to be built from the outside in. Your center has to be mobile. He has to be able to switch onto a guard on the perimeter. If he can't stay on the floor in a playoff series.
All because one player proved that the most dangerous spot on the court was 35 feet from the basket. It's a total demolition of basketball's traditional rules.
Which brings us to the final piece of the puzzle, the mental breakdown.
Right, because after you break a defender's body by making them run all over, and you break the coach's strategy by warping the court, the last step is to break their mind.
And no one speaks to this better than Chris Paul, one of the smartest, toughest defensive guards to ever play.
His quote is just filled with this palpable sense of frustration. He says, you play perfect defense, hands up, contest, and it still goes in.
That is the ultimate demoralization. As a defender, you follow the scouting report perfectly, your footwork is great, you get a hand right in his face, you do everything you were taught to do, and the result is the same. Swish.
It's got to be soul-crushing.
It is. It's a concept in psychology called learned helplessness. When you consistently fail despite giving a perfect effort, you eventually stop believing that your effort matters. Your confidence just completely erodes.
And that's where it moves from just skill to actual psychological warfare, because once that defender starts to doubt,
that's when hesitation creeps in. Maybe next time they don't close out quite as hard, they give up an extra inch of airspace, they're a microsecond slower on their contest, and that tiny, tiny margin is all the room Curry needs.
So it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. They hesitate because they're afraid of failing, even with perfect defense, and that hesitation is what ensures they fail.
It's a vicious cycle. It's a mind game played at the speed of the NBA, and Curry's supreme confidence becomes its own weapon against the opponent's doubt.
To really put all of this into its proper historical place, we have to look at the words of Reggie Miller.
The original three-point assassin. The guy who, in the 90s, really made the three-pointer a clutch, game-winning weapon.
And Reggie's quote is perfect because it shows the evolution. He said, Steph took what I did and turned it nuclear.
What a phrase, turned it nuclear. It's such a great distinction. Miller was a revolutionary because he proved you could rely on the three in the biggest moments. But he admits that what Curry did was something else entirely. It was an evolutionary leap further than anyone thought possible.
So what does nuclear actually mean in basketball terms?
It means taking Miller's clutch efficiency and combining it with unprecedented volume and unprecedented range. Reggie was a sniper. He picked his spots. Curry's like a strategic bombing campaign. He's launching from anywhere at any time, off the dribble, off the catch, and doing it with historical efficiency.
He didn't just stand on Reggie's shoulders.
He built a rocket ship on Reggie's shoulders and flew to another planet. He made the three-point line feel like just a suggestion, not a boundary. It's why he's universally seen as not just the successor to guys like Miller, but a true revolutionary who created his own category.
So when you put it all together, the final summary of his unstoppability, according to all these legends, isn't really about the points.
No, it's about breaking things, breaking defensive schemes, breaking the traditional value of size, and ultimately breaking the opponent's will to even try to defend him perfectly.
Okay, looking back at everything we've covered, we can really boil down his unstoppability into three distinct but connected pillars.
Yeah, the first has to be the range and the rules. He fundamentally changed the geometry of the court. He forced a player-driven rule change where the defense has to start at half court. And as Shaq confirmed, that made traditional size and rim protection almost obsolete.
The second pillar is the unfair speed and work ethic. That one-motion shot, the thing Kevin Durant called unfair, is what neutralizes elite athletes. But as Draymond pointed out, that unfairness is born from an insane, almost mythical work ethic and thousands of hours of perfect practice.
And finally, the third pillar is the gravity warping and mental toll. LeBron gave us the perfect term for how he tilts the entire defense, creating easy shots for his teammates. And Chris Paul showed us the end result of that pressure: psychological defeat, where defenders lose faith that even their best effort is good enough.
It's an airtight case, and it's built entirely by his greatest rivals.
All right, so here's the final thought to leave you with, something to chew on. It builds on what Reggie Miller said about the game going nuclear.
I'm ready.
If Steph Curry proved that making a shot from 40 feet could be a viable, efficient, and strategically vital part of an offense, what does the next evolution of shooting even look like? What happens when a new generation who grew up watching him starts treating the half-court line as the new three-point line?
Wow. How would a defense even begin to cope with that? A game played almost entirely from 30 to 40 feet out.
We might just be at the very beginning of this whole revolution. And it's all because one guy decided the known laws of basketball geometry didn't apply to him.
The arms race between offense and defense just keeps escalating. It's fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. And hey, if you're as blown away as we are by how one person could completely revolutionize a sport and make legends admit defeat, do us a favor and smash that like button right now.
And we really want to know what you think. Drop a comment for us below. Who do you think made the realest, most insightful point about why Steph is so feared? Was it Kobe's chilling analogy of guarding a ghost? Or was it LeBron's strategic concept of warping gravity?
Let us know which one really captures his impact for you. And share this deep dive with your group chat. Everyone who loves basketball needs to hear these truths straight from the mouths of the greats.
And of course, make sure you subscribe for more deep dives into the people and the ideas that change the game. We'll catch you on the next one.